Welcome everyone. आज इस कहानी का विश्लेषण करेंगे. We're doing a complete explainer on A.R. Barton's fascinating short story, Going Places. And let me tell you, this isn't just some simple cliché tale about a girl who has a massive crush on a famous football player. Oh no. It is a deeply relatable, psychological dive straight into the messy, complicated mind of a teenager. It's all about how we cope with our surroundings, why we dream so big, and man, what happens when those wild dreams crash headfirst into the very real, very gritty world.
Okay, let's dive into this by defining the core themes we'll be looking at. Adolescent fantasizing and hero worship. You know the drill, right? When teenagers are in that weird transitional phase of life, they don't exactly have a ton of real-world experience. So what do? They create these wild, totally unrealistic, totally glamorous futures in their heads. They absolutely idolize celebrities and completely gloss over the actual practical steps it takes to achieve that kind of success. It's really just a coping mechanism. It's a mental escape hatch from an everyday reality that can honestly feel pretty suffocating and limited.
Here's the roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The teenage dreamer. 2. Fantasy versus reality. 3. The imagined hero. 4. The waiting game. And finally, 5. Themes and takeaways. And hey, for all the Class 12 students tuning in right now, you're going to want to pay attention. Consider this your absolute, complete roadmap for crushing your exams on this chapter.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the teenage dreamer. So our whole story revolves around our protagonist, Sophie, and she perfectly embodies that universal, desperate teenage desire for fame and wealth. I mean, just look at how incredibly scattered her ambitions are. First, she wants to own the absolute most sophisticated boutique in the entire city. Then, suddenly, she dreams of being this natural-born fashion designer, just like Mary Quant. And when someone actually challenges her on how she's going to afford all this, she casually mentions, oh, she'll just become an actress because, they make real money, and she'll use that to fund the boutique. Or hey, maybe she'll just step right out of school and work as a manager. She's literally jumping from one glamorous profession to another without a single ounce of practical planning.
So, the crucial point is this. Her dreams are totally 100% disconnected from her socioeconomic reality. The harsh truth of the matter is that Sophie comes from a poor, working-class background. In fact, she and her best friend are already earmarked for the local biscuit factory the literal second they finish school. That is her actual predetermined destiny. But it's a destiny she absolutely and fiercely refuses to accept.
Which brings us to Section 2, fantasy versus reality.
And this brilliantly illustrates the inevitable, massive collision between Sophie's grand illusions and her real life. It's beautifully shown by comparing her to her best friend, Janzi. While Sophie is completely lost in unrealistic escapism, Janzi is grounded. Janzi knows they don't have the cash for a fancy boutique. She accepts their fate at the biscuit factory. Basically, Janzi represents pragmatism. It's a slightly melancholy but very grounded acceptance of their limited opportunities, and this constantly frustrates Sophie, who just wants to keep dreaming.
Another massive anchor to reality is her elder brother, Jeff. He's an apprentice mechanic. He's a really quiet, reserved guy who travels to the far side of the city for work every day. The text actually gives us this incredible quote about him. Words had to be prized out of him like stones out of the ground. And because Jeff is so incredibly silent, Sophie gets super jealous. She ends up projecting this fascinating, top-secret adult life onto him. She imagines he's out there hanging with exotic people in distant, exciting places, and she desperately wants him to take her into that world.
But the ultimate contrast? That's her home life. In her head, she's wearing this stunning yellow dress and a black cape, riding on the back of Jeff's motorcycle while the whole world applauds her. But in reality, she walks into a tiny, suffocating, smoky room. The sink is completely cluttered with dirty dishes. Her mother is hunched over, just working tirelessly. And her harsh, hyper-realistic father sits there breathing heavily and eating a shepherd's pie after a brutal day of physical labor. The contrast is totally jarring, and honestly, it's exactly why she feels the need to escape into her own mind.
Let's move right into Section 3, the imagined hero.
So to escape this suffocating reality, Sophie needs a focal point. Enter Danny Casey. He is this young, incredibly famous Irish football prodigy playing for the United team. Sophie's entire family, especially her dad and brothers, are completely obsessed with football. They go to watch the match every single Saturday like it's a religious pilgrimage. Even her strict father respects the game, though he's more into older legends like Tom Finney. The brothers, though, they absolutely idolize Casey. To them, and to Sophie, Danny Casey is a massive, untouchable, real-world celebrity.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because this is exactly where Sophie's runaway imagination gets her into serious trouble.
It all starts with a simple spark, just seeing him at the football match. But to get the attention of her super quiet brother Jeff, she invents a lie. She tells Jeff she actually met Danny Casey outside Royce's window, but neither of them had a pen or paper for an autograph. Now Jeff totally doubts her, but he ends up telling Janzy's brother Frank, and boom, suddenly that little leak turns into a massive neighborhood rumor. To defend her story to her highly skeptical family, she backs herself into a corner and falls into a trap. She completely fabricates that Danny has promised to meet her for a real date next week.
And that brings us to Section 4, the waiting game.
We've officially reached the emotional climax of our explainer. Sophie's fabricated lie has gone way, way too far. But instead of just admitting the truth, she actually forces herself to live it out. She walks all the way down to a sheltered path along the canal. And just look at how her mind expertly stages the scene. There's a solitary elm tree, a wooden bench. She even notes to herself that it's a perfect private spot for lovers to meet. She sits there, waiting, as the city noises slowly fade away, creating the absolute ultimate romantic, shadowy ambiance for this totally imaginary date. She is fully 100% immersing herself in a delusion.
So, as the darkness sets in, and she sits there completely alone on that wooden bench, we really have to ask ourselves, after all of this massive buildup, is Danny Casey actually going to show up?
No, of course not, because the meeting never happened in the first place. This is a blunt, painful reality check, and it pulls both Sophie and us right out of the fantasy, crashing back down to earth. There was no promise. There was absolutely no conversation outside the clothing store. She's literally out there waiting for a ghost.
The emotional fallout here is incredibly tragic. Sophie begins to feel this heavy, crushing burden of disappointment. But here's the catch. She's also terrified of losing credibility with her family. Think about it. If she goes home and admits he didn't show, her aggressive father is going to mock her relentlessly, and her brother Jeff will probably never believe another word she says. So, in a deeply tragic coping mechanism, she chooses to cling to the fantasy. She decides right then and there that she would rather carry the lifelong silent burden of a fake, broken heart than ever admit to her family that she made the whole thing up.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 5, Themes and Takeaways.
Let's summarize the absolutely essential literary analysis you need to take away from this. Now, what's really interesting about this is a specific quote right from the text. Resignation was no sudden thing. This perfectly, brilliantly captures Sophie's psychological state. She doesn't just snap out of her dream instantly while sitting on that bench. Accepting the harsh reality of her working-class life and her extremely limited future is a slow, deeply painful process of resignation. She fights it every single step of the way. The core theme of Going Places is that incredibly fine line between healthy aspirations and destructive escapism. Having ambitions, that's great. It can beautifully motivate teenagers to work hard and actually climb out of difficult socioeconomic circumstances. But excessive fantasizing, exactly like Sophie's, where there's zero practical planning, no hard work, and just a total blind reliance on delusions, that only leads to a painful, heartbreaking disconnect from reality. So I want to leave you with this final thought as we wrap up our analysis today. Take a look at your own life. Do your own daydreams inspire you to put your head down and actually work harder to achieve them? Or are they just a comfortable place for you to hide from the harsh realities of life? Think about that for a bit, and I'll catch you in our next explainer.